Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom for the Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and of course Xbox. So, last time we have managed to gather the rest of those remaining couple of those Patrick socks in particular from the likes of the past few worlds. In addition to those, we also managed to actually, I won't classify for saying, I think that's as far as I can say when it comes to the last video, is the fact that yes, we did manage to gather every single Patrick socks in particular. So, yeah, enough about that explanation. I'll talk more about this until later, because for now, let's get into the next world.
Here we are in the Kelp Forest, an interesting area with many sights to see, for those that don't get hopelessly lost first.
So here we go folks, on to this next world, which appears to be Kelp Forest. In this case, most people think this is probably the worst world in the game. This is pretty obvious because, as you can tell, this place is going to be filled to the brim of almost like dark patches everywhere, or in this case the actual darkest lighting. And as a result, if you ever play this on let's just say the lowest, brightest setting, then you might not see what you're going to be going through. So either way, because today for this episode in particular, is the fact that we're also able to actually just move on to this next new world, as far as I like to say, and that was the forms of Kelp Forest. And if I have to guess correctly, that in addition to most people found this to be one of the worst worlds in the game, I actually agree with that as well, despite the fact that the Kelp Forest first appearance on, I would say, in SpongeBob Club, I think that's what the episode was called, or Club SpongeBob, I don't know what I've usually pronounced it, just because, again, it has been such a long time since I've actually seen the TV series of some stuff like that, because I'm still more used to with the forms of other TV shows in particular, but I'm not going to mention about the forms of some other things worth noting for, apart from the fact that, well, you remember what I mentioned earlier, ever since Journey Forms have been in Sand Mountain World, that I did say originally we were about to be able to get ourselves the Game Gear Micro, and join at some point in the future when that thing comes out on West. Unfortunately though, that's probably not going to happen, because there are a few reasons that I usually I'm not a big fan of in terms of the forms of that particular micro handheld, as a matter of fact. Like, first of all, the buttons themselves as being slightly bigger compared to the forms of how it does it on the actual hardware. And second of all is the fact that I'm pretty sure that the screen itself is super tiny, and plus if my hand cramps, assuming if I was able to play that particular, you know, the Game Gear Micro handheld thing, and as a result it will give me a lot of hand cramps if I played that for a long time. Plus, I feel like the actual library of games is actually a little bit meh to me though. Well, at least there are some good ones, like as I mentioned this earlier, Sonic the Hedgehog games, although I'll explain more about it later, because for now, let's talk to Mrs. Puff.
Hi, Mrs. Puff. Driving class isn't out here today, is it?
No, SpongeBob. Why do you say that? Do you think we'd have class out here just to hide from you? How silly. I'm just, gathering twigs for the winter. Yes, that's it.
Oh, can I help? I have a merit badge in twig gathering.
Actually, you can help with something else. These robots showed up and scared all the students, campers off into the forest. Before the ranger arrives, someone needs to go out and find them.
I'll help you find them, Mrs. Puff. I'm the sponge for the job.
Thanks, SpongeBob. I'll make sure to give you a nice reward when you've found all of them.
Alright, so in this particular mission objective is the fact that we need to find all 6 of the actual campers, and there appears to be, well, in some specific spots, but then again though, we're probably not going to go through the entire world for the sake of this video. I apologize for that particular dialogue error or anything like that. This is pretty obvious because of how the fact that it has been such a long while since I actually did manage to discuss upon something. So even then, And as a matter of fact for this point, it's the fact that tomorrow, that we might as well able to actually say this right now, spoiler warning for those of you who want to know what's going to come up tomorrow. After when me and Piglet has now finally recently finished up with Mario Party 10 Let's Play, I feel like we're about to be going back into the Mario Kart scheme of things, because, well, in the grand scheme of things, because as a result, that since we've already got 2 games left in the Mario Kart series in terms of Let's Plays department, with one exception being, well actually 3 exceptions, or 4 I should say. Like for instance, we were expecting to do Arcade GP1 or Arcade GP2 or even DX as a result, but it might be pretty complicated for me to able to actually sort that particular stuff out. And as a matter of fact though, that we probably should skip over Mario Kart Tour, because to me though, I usually do not enjoy that game as much compared to the forms of the other games for sure. Well, we'll just go say that right now, I'm just not a big fan of you know, Mario Kart Tour as a result. I mean, the game is still fun, but nowhere near as like replayability to me in comparison to the forms of how it does it in the previous games for sure. And this is where we go to the restroom and stuff, mainly with the toilet and stuff. I'm not exactly sure if they actually shown up a toilet somewhere, but as far as I'm guessing it correctly in terms of visual standpoints or anything like that, I know that I'm not exactly clear on that one. Especially noticeable how the fact that it's been a couple of days since I actually just managed to come back to this. Well, ever since 2 days ago actually. So, but either way though, let's just go ahead and just get some more shiny objects by defeating more robots, as you can see on screen. And also, we got ourselves the first golden spatula within about 7 minutes or so far. And we actually got ourselves 68 of those golden spatulas so far. So now let's go ahead and move on to this next point in the Kelp Forest. So, if you're wondering about the fact that what the Kelp Forest is originated from, well, of course it's pretty obvious. It's like SpongeBob Club episode. It's that basically, when SpongeBob and Patrick didn't manage to sort out that particular tree house or anything like that, and as a result, that Squidward got a bit annoyed when, you know, those two giggling about something. Now, as a result of that kind of stuff, though, if they think that Squidward will attempt to leave the actual, the clubhouse as a result, then the actual, the stork were able to actually come off, and then they somehow managed to let the actual giant, I don't know what you would call that particular, like, giant beam stork or something like that, to somehow fling the actual clubhouse all the way to Kelp Forest itself. So, something's worth mentioning about that particular things itself, what they first appeared in. So, but either way though, that's just how I can usually think about it, as far as I can remember. But let me know in the comments below if that was gonna be true or not. But either way though, that's all I can really say about it. Plus with the actual magic conch shell for the actual appearance. Although speaking of the magic conch shell, that particular object makes their first appearance in obviously pretty much the same thing in SpongeBob Club or Club SpongeBob episode, so I just want to point that out.
Hi, Mr. Krabs. What are you doing here?
Ahoy, Patrick! I'm trying to return 3 stone tikis to this pedestal so I can get to the kelp cave across that bridge. There could be customers in there! I saw 3 tikis scattered around this area, but me old brain couldn't figure out how to get them back up here.
Can I try?
Sure, why not? I need a good laugh. There's a golden spatula up there for you if you succeed.
Oh boy, Mr. Krabs. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, so for this next mission right here is the fact that we need to able to get a lot of usage of those tiki stones, as you can see right there, so that way we need to solve this little puzzle. Now, you can able to actually ultimately skip this mission if you're having a first time able to have some bit of frustration with this mission, but I'm probably not going to able to skip this mission and just grab the golden spatula from there, just because of how the fact that I have no idea what I'm supposed to do right here. Again, semi-blind, so there's going to be quite a few times that I did not exactly know what I was expecting, what I was supposed to be doing. But recently I managed to able to play through a bit on the remake of the game recently, and let me tell you straight off the bat, I actually really enjoyed it so far still, even though I think the only progression I was in is the fact that I'm pretty sure I'm in the halfway point of the game already, so if I ever go back into the remake of this game and join at some point on the PlayStation 4, during later on throughout the day, then I can pretty much guarantee I can memorize the actual puzzle itself like this, so... But yeah, that I digress. So even then though, there's the first Tiki Stone just to be placed around here. I'm pretty sure you need to place for about 3 of those Tiki Stones if I could expect to call correctly, so yeah, there's not much else I can say. Okay, quickly did some jump cut right there, and I assume need to realize is the fact that since after all, if you somehow accidentally just manage to ground pound that particular switch, it will manage to make the actual Tiki Stone reappear on the exact same spot. But as a result, that could be also say applies to the other 2 Tiki Stones as you can see on screen. So as a result, I did not even make it. Because I know there's actually a way they can able to actually do this a little bit easier and fine and dandy and stuff like that. But either way though, let's get into the actual main emphasis on the forms of Kelp Forest itself. That there is no way we can able to see where we're supposed to go. Plus, if we get into the forms of the actual the cave section, oh boy, the cave section, I should say, is going to be pretty tedious. Which we'll point it out whenever we're done with some parts of this particular section of this world. But either way though, let's not get ahead of ourselves at this point just yet though. So, but either way though, before we continue on with this particular Tiki headstone puzzle segment worth noting for, I just need to double check on these other areas and stuff, and I should just realize I need to pay attention to those brown leaves, because these brown leaves are basically just like bounce pads basically. So even then though, well, why do I just keep on referencing Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric? Seriously, I just hate that game so much. Oh boy. Anyway, because you're gonna be hearing me talking about a lot of... Well, I remember back in the forms of being last year or something like that, that for whatever reason, a friends of mine, mainly with the forms of Tails, Knuckles, or Shadow, or Silver as a result, keeps on mentioning about the fact that how bad Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric game that is, because I think I understandably why, just because, well, that game has multiple glitches, multiple game bugging stuff and stuff like that, and despite there's a patch in that game, but turns out they do not fix everything. Like, I'm pretty sure we've already discussed on that long enough as it goes by, especially noticeable how the fact that that particular game was almost become 6 years old until at some point during the forms of it, well, let's just say until November this year, that it will be 6 years old, despite we've no longer have that game anymore, just because we can't stand that game so much. But at least on the upside though, we have some good games to play, like, well, as we already established that before, that we played Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, despite how outdated that version of the game looks now, especially compared to the forms of the superior Switch version, probably due to the much more better battle mode and stuff like that. And also another thing too, seriously, why is there knockback as a Sunleaf thing? Anyway, and there's also 3D worlds that we seem able to enjoy it still, despite that we need to restart everything due to our Wii U save data corruptions and stuff like that. And also the Zelda titles has been like, always been a pleasure to my ears. So anyway, so let's go ahead and spend this on here, so that way we can able to progress during the forms of the continuation portion of the, well, the Kelp Forest basically. And there's another bungee jump section right here. So, but either way though, I'm not exactly sure if I was gonna make it for this point, but well, it might not be accessible for Patrick though, because, you know, only SpongeBob, he's the only one who can able to, well, do the bungee jumps basically. Speaking of Patrick Star actually, I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, this is the final world that we can only select Patrick on this game so far, because until whenever we get on to the next, well, let's say the final 2 worlds specifically, which there are the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, as well as the forms of SpongeBob's Dream, that I get a feeling that we might as well able to select both SpongeBob and Sandy Cheeks. So as a result, this is the final world they're able to feature Patrick as a playable character. It's kind of sad for most Patrick fans out there, but it was there for the sake of the forms of trying to able to referencing some other seasons, mainly with like, well, for instance, that as you can tell in this world, that the only two playable characters you can only use is well, basically both SpongeBob and Patrick, because think of like a reference to you know, SpongeBob Club, or in this case, Club SpongeBob episode. So, but even then, though, it makes it a little bit obvious. So, even then, though, just to make things a little bit more obvious for that reference. So, but no, you get the idea for that solution right here. So, even then, though, plus this music is so quiet, which I think it's pretty understandable when it comes to able to exploring around in forests most of the time, unlike in the forms of how it does it on the previous worlds, that somehow the music in the previous worlds, it somewhat feels a bit more, well, atmospheric at the same time. Well, I can't know exactly how do I explain this properly, but either way though, let's go ahead and continue things on from here, and excuse me, that's, oh yeah, what was I trying to say with the forms of that? The reason why I'm probably no longer going to be getting the Sega Game Gear Micro. The only reason being for that is because if I somehow imagine playing that while the actual thing is about to be releasing, I was able to actually get myself hand cramps if I played a small mini console, because at this point in time we actually got ourselves much more bigger hands more likely than everything every now and then. And as a result of that kinds of stuff though is the fact that since that how this is a perfect example of why, that we no longer have ourselves the normal DSi hardware and as well as the Game Boy Micro, because if I played those for a long period of time, and as a result it gives me a lot of hand cramps. And as a result, I'm perfectly fine to able to actually replace my old DSi to the DSi XL, and that way my hand cramps will no longer going to be cramped, because I'm more used to with the XL size compared to the forms of the normal size DS and stuff like that. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but it's just that the more my hand's grown, then it'll start to get a little bit more, how do I put it, a little bit cramped up at one form or another, but either way though, that's how I get the feeling from that, so, but I digress. So, yeah, talking of which, because of that, I'm not exactly sure of how the fact that I'm actually feel comfortable with the Sega Game Gear Micro and stuff like that every now and then, just because of how the fact that I feel like the buttons themselves might be a bit small, assuming if you're able to actually use the thumb or something like that. But either way though, that's why I get the feeling for this little particular theory and stuff. And why do I just... I accidentally destroyed that. Hold on. Let me just commit suicide, and then as a result, we're able to try that again. Luckily, we get ourselves a checkpoint from the sake of the forms of that respawning spot, so that way we can able to try this again. And seriously, why knockback? Why the knockback? I mean, usually relatively speaking, because of how the fact that combined with the forms of timing jumps and also some other tricky puzzles that you have to do with, especially noticeable if you do not know what you're doing, you're gonna die plenty of times because of knockback and as well as the forms of that particular unpredictable enemy pattern sometimes. Especially noticeable with those very annoying robots, they're constantly sending us a lot of like rockets and stuff. You guys should know what I'm talking about right here, so... Anyways, let's go ahead and just kick this robot's butt, and hopefully we should be able to do this properly for the sake of this puzzle. And there we go, so we got one in, and another one in there. And now we need to focus on the last, Tiki headstone, so even then though it's a good thing we actually activate that particular teleporting box right here, so that way we can able to actually just well, carry this Tiki stone all the way from there. And once you're done with this, well, assuming if you're able to actually aim this thing at the correct point, then you would able to accomplish this particular objective. In addition to that, the beanstalk will able to actually decide to grow, and it's your chance to able to grab yourselves the, what else, another golden spatula. So, it might not be so bad for my recognition, but it's just the fact of the matter is though, it's the fact that you have to be exactly where you're supposed to go. Which, relatively speaking, you can get lost in this place so easily if you manage to do not know what you're doing. But anyway, we got about 69 of these golden spatulas so far. So, it's not too bad. And let's get into the forms of the kelp caves. And, oh boy, I think we might be able to do a lot of, like, multitasking missions. Like, for instance, I think we're gonna have to get a lot of emphasis on pressing any of those switches, and also some of these collectibles that we might actually consider need to be collecting. So, let's just say, for instance, if we get into this bus stop right here, and first of all, let me just activate this thing. And, yeah, it looks like we definitely need to use SpongeBob for the majority of this particular section right here.
Hey kid, I could really use your help if you had some time to spare.
Sure, Barnacle Boy, what do you need?
I'm trying to recover my lost energy crystals that power my new secret superhero power. It seems the robots have found my supply and have hidden them in this cave.
Secret superhero power? Oh, what's it do? What's it do? What's it do?
If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret, would it? Just trust me, it's worth finding these crystals. I'd go searching myself, but my bunions are acting up today.
Well, then you rest those super bones of yours. I'll get searching for these crystals.
Okay, so the next objective that we need to do is the fact that we need to find all 6 of those power crystals. Sound familiar? Well, it might be pretty similar to the forms of that, is it? Okay, so it's only 6 of those crystals that we need to find. So basically, it kind of feels like familiar because it almost reminds me of Crash Bandicoot or something, except the fact that rather than just having one, you know, purple crystal in order to be able to progress for certain levels, instead, we need to find all 6 in Junior forms of this one world alone. So, yeah, I just want to point it out. So, and, yeah, for the sake of this cave, as you can see right there, we need to do a lot of multitasking as such, as I said before. But first of all, let's grab this next Patrick sock right here, and that brings us to 9 of these things so far. So, there's nothing we can do around here at the moment, apart from the fact that we need to do a lot of, like, you know what, these little footstools that we can able to actually just to get along with it? Because basically every now and then, this is what the bubble missile ability comes into play, even for when you're trying to play as SpongeBob in Journey forms of that particular section. And as a result, that if you stand on one of these switches, as you can tell, that way you're able to release the cage out of the forms of that particular switch. And as a result for that kind of stuff, though, you have to do that a lot. Plus, you have to do a lot of backtracking most of the time, even for trying to activate certain switches in between for Patrick's, you know, Tiki Stones, along with the forms of SpongeBob's, true progressioning when it comes to the switch over there. And as a result, we need to do a lot of backtracking, plus we have to keep on switching between characters during the bus stops, which I don't know if I'm ever gonna be playing a remake of this game. That's usually, relatively speaking, I kinda wish we can able to switch between the two on the fly, which, you know, kinda like how it did in new forms of in Sonic Heroes, whenever you switch between the speed type character or the flight type character or even a power type character in that game. And that way you can able to actually switch things around, so that way you can able to have different methods in between. But, oh well, it's not the end of the world, honestly. So either way, though, let's aim for this, the switch over there, so that way we can progress. So either way, though, now we can able to simply progress from there. But again, there's not much else I can really talk about this, I'm afraid, apart from the fact that, well, I basically guarantee for able to no longer, well, I've pretty much changed my mind when it comes to getting the, you know, the Sega Game Gear Micro, because, well, first of all, that I feel like the game selection is actually pretty meh, with some exceptions, mind you. Well, of course, being Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Chaos, because those both games are considered to be pretty good, even for the Game Gear standards. And aside from that, though, there's not much else you can think of. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens until and at some point throughout. So, anyways, now we can able to progress from here. But then again, there's not much else I can usually think about it, apart from the fact that, well, we're pretty much almost nearly at the end of June already, which I'm quite surprised, because despite the fact that we are still practically going to be able to actually doing with this game in particular, because obviously today's day is, of course, the 26th of June today, in this case in Friday. As far as the next uploading schedule of this is concerned, it will be probably going to be until likely on next Monday. And after that, though, I might as well take a break on this game for a little bit, because as a matter of fact that we might be able to focusing on other Let's Plays here and there first. Like for instance, for example, that at some point next month, or in this case not long now actually, and that was the fact that I'm presuming that some Toys else can able to do a redo Let's Play of Pac-Man World 2. For those of you guys who are waiting for that particular Let's Play of that particular game for a very, very long time now, which is very understandable for those of you who really want to see Pac-Man World 2 in action and stuff like that, because I know most people found that game to be a lot more fun, and probably their fan favorite Pac-Man World game out of the lot. Probably because of the fact that, probably because of nostalgia reasons or something like that, but hey, at least we can able to actually deal with that. And same applies to the forms of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, despite that, you know, the official Olympic Tokyo 2020 Olympics has been delayed until next year due to the coronavirus pandemic. But apart from those side of things though, that's we're just gonna say screw it. We really want to get the series done before we move on to the different series, which either way though, like specifically different game series as a matter of fact. Like I'm obviously still need to get back into you know, the Kingdom Hearts stuff, and also same applies to that. Well, I'm pretty sure that Pickles still needs to get back into Yoshi's Crafted World, and hopefully once we're done with those particular Mario, some Mario series, like specifically, well, we've done all of the 2D ones, all the 3D platformers, and we have almost done the kart series, and we need to get a catch up on the rest of the Mario Party series, and especially noticeable that we haven't done that much in terms of Mario sports games basically, apart from those two that we've already done, which there are Mario Sports Mix, despite the quality itself is a bit average, but the commentary wise it's not that great, to be honest here. And as a matter of fact, that the only Mario sports game we've ever done is of course Mario Super Sluggers for the American Nintendo Wii. And also we pretty much like, well, aside from we need to do a redo Let's Play of the original Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, just to make the commentary itself a little bit more balanced, as well as the game audio and stuff like that. And oh yeah, what else is there? We've almost done with some of the Sonic games for some particular time, although obviously we've already done several Sonic games in the past, like the you know, the Dreamcast era of Sonic games, the classic era, and the modern era, and pretty much all this stuff though, really. All except the handheld games, which there are Sonic Advance Trilogy, and the Sonic Rush Trilogy. This means includes Sonic Colors on the DS, and as a matter of fact, that's all I could really think about. Now, of course, the next Kirby Let's Play could be somewhat between Star Allies, or Superstar Ultra, or Triple Deluxe, or Planet Robobots, if really depending on the forms of how the fact that what Let's Plays are we still practically going to be doing, despite, you know, we're still far lacking with, you know, the 3DS capture device and stuff like that. And also we got, the Legend of Zelda games, which there are plenty of them to able to hopefully try to tackle for at this point in time. And to top it all off is the fact that there's also going to be some Rayman games, which I don't know if I'm able to actually do all of them, because of how the fact that it's been such a long time since I actually played some of those Rayman games, as a matter of fact. And also there is I would say the Star Fox games, yes, some Star Fox games basically, like ranging from the original game all the way up to, I would say, Star Fox Command or Star Fox Zero, but Command is the only one I haven't got yet. Speaking of the forms of Star Fox games actually, recently, I forgot to mention to you guys ever since during the forms within the past few days, recently we've managed able to go ourselves to new GameCube games, which there are Star Fox Adventures, in this case most people found us to be the black sheep in terms of the Star Fox games, and also Star Fox Assault. And the reason why we got those two is because, well, we feel like we can able to actually collect most of those Star Fox games as much as possible, as you can tell. because so far we still got Star Fox and Star Fox 2, thanks to the forms of the Super Nintendo Classic Mini Console, and also we still got Light Wars in the original cartridge version, and also we've now finally got ourselves Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube, and also same applies to Star Fox Assault as well. And also we still have ourselves Star Fox Zero for the Nintendo Wii U, despite we still not touch upon that game yet. Probably because of how the fact that, well, I've heard some people complain about, well, the bizarre controls and stuff like that. And, I suppose the only game I need to get next, or in this case, the last game I need to get next, or left, is Star Fox Command for the Nintendo DS, which I think that was the only game I need to get next. So, but even then, it really depending on how the fact that how much money I've got at the moment, but I still need to save up in journey forms of like at some point I'll pre-order Paper Mario the Origami King, which that was the next game I'm about to be pre-ordering next, and also same applies to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 1+2, as in the forms of a remastered compilation game on the PlayStation 4. I don't know what my last PlayStation 4 game I might actually consider getting, but this is really depending on how the fact that if eventually PlayStation 5 gets some more news and stuff like that, which it's hard to tell at the moment just because of how the fact that some of these bad, terrible news has been happening throughout the majority of 2020 so far, especially noticeable how the fact that with going incredibly bad for America out there, mainly with the forms of that Black People Matters or anything like that. It's hard to pronounce that sometimes, but anyways, let's go ahead and get ourselves the next Power Crystal, and I think we've only got 2 left, so hopefully we should find those during time, but I digress. So hopefully we were able to use that Tiki Head once again, and hopefully we would... Actually, is there anything else aside from there? I don't know, I'm just a little bit confused right now. So, now if you're probably wondering about the fact that why do we got ourselves the final 2 GameCube games in our GameCube shelf? Well, there are a few things about this though, is the fact that we used to have ourselves Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on the GameCube, and also same applies to Piglet's Big Game, also on the GameCube as well. Sad news to tell you for this point, guys, is the fact that since I haven't really played that much in terms of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, but that's probably because of how the fact that, well, we usually find that game to be okay. I mean, nothing substantial about it. Especially noticeable how the graphics do look a bit more likely like a Nintendo 64 game, or even not so bad or anything like that. Plus, some of these animations of the cutscenes do look a bit bizarre and stuff. They have some like weird movements and such, plus some character facial expressions do look a bit, I wouldn't say scary, but it's just like kind of, well, stilted. But as is how do you expect when it comes to movie license games, and during at some point throughout the early years, throughout the actual lifespan or something, so... But I digress. And also, I really don't think the voice acting does manage to fit well in the video game version of Chamber of Secrets, because it sort of feels like a combination of both the Philosopher's Stone and pretty much everything else for that besides. That gets like a younger Harry Potter's voice. Compared to the normal film, however, though, it does manage to able to age up a bit for his voice, as far as what I've remembered from the film. But even then, I think I'm as well able to watch the film any day compared to playing a game like that. But I digress, that's probably just me. And sadly for Piglet's Big Game fans out there, sadly we no longer have that game on the GameCube. This is like a couple of reasons why. First off is the fact that, well, we have no idea how to be able to actually explain this right now. We were originally trying to able to redo that game for the 3rd time with a better quality and even better commentary and stuff like that, but sadly that's no longer the case. Although there's also the PlayStation 2 version, which I could consider trying to get, but not now though, because even then there's a lot of chaos going on. And second is that my GameCube disc of Piglet's Big Game is now scratched up completely. And as a result, it might end up like having a lot of loading times glitch, like it won't able to actually load up anything like that, and it will tend to give my game crash. And also same applies to the fact that, well, I just have some scratches and stuff like that on that particular disc now. I know I understand because I actually had that game for a very, very long time now. But as a result of that kinds of stuff though, since I played this game a lot as a kid, but I potentially no longer have that game on the GameCube. So it kind of sucks though, especially noticeable how the fact that I know you guys may be able to think to yourselves, this is probably the most popular Let's Plays that we've ever done throughout the whole entire channel. Because it's very understandable because how the fact that we just get a lot of likes during the forms of that particular Let's Play, which is very understandable. But tell you what guys, whenever we get ourselves the PlayStation 2 version at some point in the future or something like that, it really depending on the forms of how the fact that if there was there or not. But either way though, we'll see what happens there, we'll see what happens. Especially noticeable how the fact that there's not much else I can talk about, which even then though, well, despite how to do with the forms of no pivot points on the analog stick at certain form or another, but we'll see what happens. But on the upside though is the fact that at least I got myself the 2 Star Fox games I was expecting I've now finally got. Especially noticeable how the fact that I definitely heard of them from before, but I've never actually experienced them for myself as you saw. So, but I digress. I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, since I accidentally just made this simple mistake right here, seemingly to say I think I should probably end things off at this point right there. So join me next time on Let's Play SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, and that was the fact that we might able to actually just to finish up with this particular world of Kelp Forest, and hopefully we'll try to able to get the last few golden spatulas, as well as the last power crystal, and even some more Patrick stocks along the way. So I'll see you guys until next Monday. Later fellas, even for this game itself.